Okay, and without further ado, we can just get along with it. So, the first video here is going to be 5 lessons I learned in my entrepreneurial journey that helped me get to where I'm at today. And so, the first one I wanted to go over, the first lesson that I learned is that no one's coming to save you. There's a quote that I like from Justin Waller. If you don't know who he is, he's really big in the space. I think he's friends with like Andrew Tate, Fresh and Fit, things like that. And he said something that I'll always remember for the rest of my life. And he said, the best day of my life is when I realized no one's coming to save me. And that really hit because it's true. I was someone who always played the victim. I was someone who always needed someone to save me, or I was blaming everyone. You know, it was either the government, my family, the system, the financial market, blah, blah, blah. All this stuff was to blame for the reason that I was a failure. And it wasn't until I started to point the finger at myself is when I realized that it was me who's to blame for why I'm not where I want to be. And what hit this home even further was a book that I read called Extreme Ownership by Jocko Willink. I think he's a Navy SEAL or something crazy like that. And after reading the book, I just decided to take complete accountability and ownership for my life. And within a year of me doing that, I started to make more money. I started to get in better shape. Just things started going my way. Now, I don't want to say that, causation is correlation is causation, however that saying goes, but I like to think that those two go hand in hand. So my lesson here is just take complete ownership and accountability for your life. Even if it's not your fault, it's like, how can you try and make the most of it? How can you put yourself in a situation where you can benefit? We're not dealt the best cards, some of us, but we can certainly choose how we react and choose where we go from there. There's plenty of people who grew up in the slums that have made it, and there's plenty of trust fund kids who didn't make it. So it's not about where you start, it's about where you end up and the journey it is to get there, and just taking accountability for your actions. Next lesson I learned was that there's always a bigger fish. Now, when I started making decent money, I'm not gonna lie, I went a little dummy. I was buying watches, I was going on European vacations that costed thousands upon thousands of dollars. I was eating out steak dinners. I was doing it all. I was doing everything that you see the entrepreneurs and the hustlers on Instagram do. I was quite literally doing it all. And I didn't think that my shit stunk. Like, I thought that I was the man. I thought that I was at the top of the food chain, that no one could touch me. And I wasn't even making good money at the time. Like, I was making decent money. Well, I still am making decent money, but it's like, it was nothing crazy. But I thought that I was unstoppable. I thought that I was just this king. And then I went out with some other entrepreneurs for like a meetup. We were gonna like network, just hang out, do whatever. And that was the first time in a while that my ass got humbled. They had supercars, they had watches on their wrist that was double than what I made in a month. They had physiques that made me just look so small. They had everything. They were dressed to the nines. They had successful businesses that were just doing crazy amounts of money per month. I couldn't believe it. And I felt insecure. I went from being, a big fish in a little pond to finally jumping in the ocean here and finding out that, I'm not shit, to say the least. And so it was a humbling moment for me. And I know a lot of people, when they start making money or they start becoming successful, they start blowing their money, they start acting like they're the king. And I'm here to tell you that there's always a bigger fish. There's always someone who has a nicer car, a nicer watch. Their business is doing more per year than you. They're just better. And instead of being jealous and instead of being insecure, what can you learn from them is what you should be saying. Instead of having this ego like I had, how can you be more humble? How can you say like, hey, I see you're doing good. Just straight up, like, what are you doing? Like, what are you doing that's better than what I'm doing? It's like, how can I learn from you? Because what I've learned is that if someone's making more money than you, They are unequivocally better at the game. It's in some way. And there is always something that you can learn from someone. So my advice is when you start making money, sure, you can have fun, but remember that there are levels to this game of wealth and that you can get humbled real quick. So instead of being an ass, try to be humble and try to learn as much as you can and try to support one another too. There's too many people in this space that are just going at it with each other, a lot of bad blood. It's like at the end of the day, we're all just trying to make money to take care of ourselves and our loved ones. Like, that's it. The third lesson that I learned was the goalposts will always move. And this is kind of to piggyback on the second lesson. And it's very easy, especially on social media, to get caught up on what everyone's doing. Like, you see people like Arlen and Iman Gadzhi and Sebastian Georgiou and all these people just doing crazy stuff on Instagram. They have like the coolest lives. And that's great and all to use that for motivation and to stay disciplined, to keep hustling. But also at the same time, it's just like, be careful about what you wish for, right? I was the type of person that was like, oh, if only I was making this much money per month, I'd be set. If I was driving this car, I'd be set. If I was able to travel to these places or have this thing, then I'd be set. And it's weird because when you get that, it doesn't matter. I wanted to go to Europe for the longest time, and I went last year. I went to Spain, France, and Italy. Great time. There's some people who will never ever get to experience like that. And the stuff I got to see, the sights I got to see, the food I got to taste, all the experiences I had, it was great. And it was something that I had wanted for a long time. But by the time I'd come back, I was already like, all right, what's the next thing? What's the next thing? When I started to hit a certain amount of money per month, where I was like, okay, now I'm making good money now. Now what's the next step? Now what's the next thing? I got a watch that I'd always wanted. It's nothing crazy. It's a Tissot PRX. I got that. I was like, cool, what's the next one? These are things that just a couple years ago, I would have killed to have. And the second I got them, I didn't even flinch. I didn't even care. I was like, cool, what's the next thing? Yeah, that's over. Now I want the next thing. Every time you acquire something or achieve a goal, just appreciate it. Because a couple years ago, you would have killed to have what you have now. And you can make these goals. You want a certain monetary goal, the goalposts will always move. You'll never be satisfied unless you can sit there and appreciate the things that you have now. So I'm not saying don't make big goals. You absolutely should make big goals. But when you achieve them, just be grateful, be able to appreciate it. Lesson number 4, no one is thinking about you. This is for all the people who are scared to put themselves out there, whether it's on social media, whether it's for a new job or whatever. I don't care what it is. You know what I'm trying to talk about. People are not thinking about you. And we go about our entire days, our entire lives, like worried about like, oh God, I don't know if I look good. Like, I'm concerned about these flaws, all this other stuff. And I'm here to tell you that no one is thinking about you. And the reason this is because everyone else has their own insecurities that they're dealing with, all their own lives that they're worrying about. They're so obsessed with that, and they're so worried about themselves that they don't even notice you. They're not even paying attention to you. And that took me so long to realize, because an artist is its worst critic, right? We're always going to be the most critical of ourselves, especially when it comes to looks and stuff like that, because we see ourselves in the mirror every day. And it's just, it's not worth it. And especially people who are trying to post content, like this online, there's guys like, oh, what are people going to say? And there's something I heard that I think would resonate with a lot of you, and maybe it would help you, because I know it helped me. No one hating on you is ever doing better than you. Hate only comes from below. The most successful people I've ever met, they never hated me, or like they never talked shit to me because I wasn't making as much money as them. If anything, they were trying to lift me up because they know what it was like to be in my position, or worse. They knew what it was like to be broke. They knew what it was like to be starting out. They're not going to talk crap to someone who's just starting out because they know what it's like. And the people who are too scared to ever go after what they wanted, they'll always be the first person to call you out because they're a bitch. Because they know deep down that they would never have the courage to do it. And so they resort to the next best thing, which is laughing at anyone who tries to escape the crab bucket. And just really think about it, because are you really going to let some random stranger or some family member, some friend that you don't even care about, are you going to let them be the reason that you never achieved what you want because you were scared of what they thought? I don't know, man. It sounds like a bitch move to me, because I know that's exactly how I used to think. And then when I snapped out of it, I was like, huh, I'm not going to let anyone take away from what I really want to achieve. And the last one here, number 5, dreams do not work unless you do. There's a quote I like from Alex Ramosi that piggybacks on this. Let me read it here. Having a goal does not make you unique. It's the price you're willing to pay to achieve the goal that does. I spent a big majority of my life waiting for something to happen. Like literally waiting for an opportunity or something to fall out of the sky for me to have all the riches and all the glory. Ideally with no effort, right? I wanted something to just fall in my lap where I was successful, had everything I want, with as little effort as possible. That is not how the world works. You have to put in the work to get to where you want to be. Like, no one gets skinny after eating just one salad, just like no one gets ripped after one workout. It's consistency that's key, and it's the people who are consistent that end up winning. It's the people who are willing to spend hours in the gym every week that have the best physiques. It's the people who are willing to work sleepless nights and put out fires and work on weekends and work these 10, 12-hour days that get to flex the Lambos and the watches and the private jets and all this other bullshit, because they deserved it. So if you want to be able to have these riches, there's no reward without risk. There's no reward without suffering. And on this game of success, it's a long one. You need to have patience in order to play it. Patience is probably one of the biggest skills you can have. I know that I'm going to win. It's just a matter of time. I'm not going to win tomorrow. I'm not even going to win in a year from now, but I know at some point I will win, because I'm willing to stay consistent and I'm willing to play the long game. And so that's what people need to understand, that as long as you're there every day getting better, you're going to win regardless, as long as you don't give up. Giving up is the only sense of failure. If you're willing to stay consistent and have patience, you will outwork and outwin everyone who isn't. Because there's a lot of impatient people out there that suffer from instant gratification, that just want everything now. And if you're able to be patient, you will steamroll all of them. And if all this success, if everything you ever wanted, if all of it was easy, then everyone would have it. You know, that's why they call it a top 1% man. They're top 1% for the reason.